Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this part two of this. And kicking off with the Knights Templar. I listened to a great podcast last night. Raymond Ibrahim, I think his name is. Basically telling the true story of the Crusades. But I also was listening to something else about the I'm sure it was the Crusades. I don't think it was the Knights Templar. I think it was, well, it's just kind of the same thing, but they're like a SAS of the Crusades, the Knights Templar. But I see saying that the Crusaders thought that they had found the spear that pierced Jesus' side. They was like losing, and then this discovery of the spear that pierced Jesus' side um, bolstered them up again. I guess like kind of gave them encouragement. Um, and in the thing, it wasn't a it was a history thing, not a biblical thing. But it's saying whether you believe it or not, it that was what kind of drove them that they found that. But anyway, um, yeah. Also, I've heard that the Knights Templar, that was something I heard years ago, but I haven't actually heard it confirmed on anything historical. But years ago, I heard that the Knights Templar rode into battle with Jesus' head in a bag, which which is why they could, such small numbers of them could defeat larger numbers, basically.
A military and religious order known as the Knights Templar was created in Jerusalem in 1118 by 9 French knights. Their official mission was to protect pilgrims on their journey to the Holy Land during the Crusades, and they participated in several battles in the Crusades themselves. The name Knights Templar was applied to this group when Baldwin II, King of Jerusalem, gave this group of knights lodging in his palace built on the ruins of King Solomon's temple. By 1128, the order was given special protection by the Pope. As the Crusades wore on, the Knights Templar set up offices in Christian countries to encourage enlistment. The Knights Templar were a tax-exempt organization and received donations from crusading pilgrims in exchange for protection to and from Jerusalem.
That is one thing. Like listening to the Bible, I fall much more on Protestant side than Catholic. However, I will say one thing: the Catholics. Well, there's some things I like about the Catholic thing. To be fair, there's like, yeah, I think they, yeah. But anyway, that's um one thing I'll say about the Catholics is that they will kick ass and take names. Basically, like the Protestants don't tend to do that so much. Like you can argue that the real tolerant side of things comes from the Protestant side, which is why it kind of, to me, lines up more with the Bible. However, the Catholics will get things done. I'll give them that.
Because its membership remained dominated by the nobility, the Knights Templar were granted many favors by European rulers. Through gifts of land and money, the Knights Templar became extremely wealthy and powerful. The Knights Templar degenerated to the point where they practiced idolatry, sex rituals, and worshipped Satan in the form of the Baphomet. In fact,
Yeah.
sodomy became a rite of initiation into the order.
Actually,
Unfortunately, those practices
I have to say, this thing actually come up in something I was watching historically, because what they I've learnt through history things about the Knights Templar was that they was meant to be. I haven't heard anything of the sodomy thing, but this thing here, the two knights on a horse, was because when they started, they denounced all land, money, everything, and they was such a broke um, organization that they had to share horses. There wasn't enough horses to go around them all, and then things changed. Kind of, they become a different um, machine altogether when people actually started. Don't like they become some of the wealthiest people in the world, but when they started off, it was that they were so broke because they gave everything away that they needed. So yeah, I'll give them that one. That's not a gay. That's not a gay reference. That, not saying they didn't do satanic shit and whatever. But that is where that comes from, is because when they started, they were so poor they couldn't afford horses.
Astronomy became a rite of initiation into the order. Unfortunately, those practices are being carried on today.
And if Washington doesn't have enough to talk about these days, the Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring. The paper reports that 2 of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year. The White House press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, said he knew nothing of this investigation. BBC's Lisa
Convenient.
Myers reports her sources in the U.S. Attorney's Office say the investigation is not focusing on prostitution, but on fraud involving the use of credit cards to pay for the call boy services.
Pope Clement V resisted abolishment of the Knights Templar for years. Finally, after waves of public pressure, most notably from King Philip IV of France, the Pope ordered 54 Templars burned alive in Paris as punishment for conspiracy and Satan worship. The order was destroyed when the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake on March 18, 1314. Many of the Knights Templar fled to Scotland, Portugal, and to the island of Malta. Some of today's well-connected youth are still initiated into a secret society based on
Given my affinity for Catholics, it's ironic that besides music, my major extracurricular interest from ninth grade was the Order of de Molay, a boys' organisation sponsored.
Knights Templar, known as the Order of de Molay. The Rosicrucians were a religious order that combined the beliefs of ancient mystery religions with Christianity. It is not known whether the Rosicrucians were founded independently of the Knights Templar. At some point, these two groups merged and became one. After the Knights Templar were abolished, the Rosicrucians became the key vehicle by which occult teachings were spread throughout Europe. This has also been the case in much of the Jesuit order, as it led the Counter-Reformation. The occult teachings of the Rosicrucians, rooted in the Kabbalah, had a big impact on recent history.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there.
Freemasonry started when the Rosicrucians merged with the stonemason guilds of Europe. From the 1640s onwards, as the construction of grand cathedrals declined, Masons concentrated less on stonework and more on occult teachings. By 1717, the world's first Grand Lodge of Freemasonry was established in London. Freemasons were initially viewed positively by the public for doing good works, and the number of lodges grew rapidly throughout Europe. The age-old satanic desire for power also grew within Freemasonry. A secret society within a secret society, made up of only the highest levels of Freemasons, fathered a ruthless philosophy that is affecting us to this day. On May 1st, 1776, the Order of the Illuminati was born.
Just stopping on the Freemasons. Freemason is they are insanely powerful, and you do know there are people that think they're master masons, they're level 3 masons, and they'll say, no, there's nothing nefarious going on with our thing. It's just a guys' club, really. But they don't really. It's a bit like a cult in that way, that until you're not even aware that there's higher levels than 3. It goes up to 33, I believe. but people that are level 3 Mason think they're Master Masons and they're not, but they will defend the Masons as no, there's nothing secretive going on there because they don't know about it themselves. But another thing, I work with an old guy called Blind Clive. It was, well, he weren't blind, but he's basically blind. But he said when he got invited to go to the Freemason things, he's like, he went, he's a funny old bloke, but he's like, bunch of weirdos. It's just a bunch of weirdos. It's like a gay club or something. So there's a bunch of guys and they go and do this weird thing. It's like, it's just weird. I don't know why they picked him. If I was a Mason, I wouldn't have asked Blind Clive to go. He couldn't tell everybody.
The Illuminati were a perfect storm of Freemasonic, banking, and religious interests. If you are truly interested in separating fact from fiction, what remains as fact about the Illuminati from original sources is most disturbing. By reading Robeson's Proof of a Conspiracy, the goals of the Illuminati become clear. Abolition of all monarchical government and patriotism to it. Elimination of private property and inheritance. Destruction.
But that's the thing. Do you know what? A few years ago, I would have believed that that was successful in the UK. The government and well, not the government, patriotism to the government, but to the country. But of recent things, it's only proved because this is what wasn't really. There's never been a patriotic country really that great of deal throughout my whole entire life. But of late, it's like it showed me that if you just because a group of people isn't outwardly being patriotic or even really gives that much thought to it, if you try and crush the country, that patriotism will come back out of in a tenfold, and our country is proof of that.
Traditional family, and eradication of all religion. The Illuminati were an extreme sect of Freemasonry. The effects of these institutions cannot be overemphasized. Over 5,000 years of occult history have been focused into Freemasonry and the Illuminati. Around 250 years of occult practices have flowed from them. The modern financial system was created by a family which had connections to the Illuminati. The goals of communism are identical to the goals of the Illuminati. Modern propaganda movements can be traced back to Freemasonry and the Illuminati. Every major war, from the French Revolution onwards, has been influenced by Illuminati philosophy to progressively promote a one-world government. The Illuminati were headed up by Adam Weishaupt. Weishaupt had a Catholic background and, contrary to popular myth, was not a Jesuit or secret Jew. When his father died when Adam was 5, Weishaupt was sent to live with his godfather, rector at Ingolstadt University. Because the university was a Catholic institution, the rector brought home many suppressed books, which Adam read. Weishaupt graduated with a Doctor of Law degree from the University of Ingolstadt in 1768. Though the Pope disbanded the Jesuits in 1773, they were still allowed to teach canon law at the university because they were the only ones who were qualified to do so. This angered Weishaupt and pushed him further towards the radical teachings he read as a child. At first, Weishaupt had only a few disciples who met locally in Weishaupt's apartment in Ingolstadt, Germany. To my knowledge, this is the only presentation to prove the physical origins of the Illuminati. From this upper room, an evil philosophy of extreme rationalism was born. Weishaupt was initiated into the Masonic Lodge of Theodore of Good Counsel in Munich in 1777. Through his growing associations with Freemasons, priests, preachers, professors, dukes, colonels, and counts, Weishaupt worked to weave the Illuminati into the rope of Freemasonry. The nobility wished to become members of the Illuminati to establish more connections to advance their own enterprises and interests. Members of the Illuminati were gradually told the intentions of the group as long as they agreed with them and could be trusted to keep its secrets.
That's what, yeah, I said, yeah.
In 1782, dozens of participants attended the Masonic Congress of Wilhelmsbad, which became the power base of the Illuminati. At its height, the Illuminati had around 2,000 members. The House of Rothschild was on its way to becoming the most powerful banking family in the world. Mayer Amschel Bauer, a Jewish coin dealer of humble origins, changed his name to M.A. Rothschild. He placed a red shield in front of his banking house, which incorporated a hexagram. The family crest has evolved over time, but maintains this element within it to this day. Mayer Rothschild never became a member of the Illuminati, nor did he finance this movement as is commonly believed. Rothschild did act as banker for two members of the Illuminati. Archbishop Prince Karl Theodor Delberg attained the highest degree within the Illuminati in 1784 and was a traitor for France and Napoleon. He reluctantly emancipated the Jews of Frankfurt in 1811 for a high price, financed by Mayer Rothschild. Karl, Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel, was deeply into the occult and was the main organizer of the Congress of Wilhelmsbad, held at the summer home of Karl's brother, William IX, Elector of Hesse. The House of Hesse built up one of the largest fortunes in Europe by hiring out mercenaries conscripted from its own kingdom to other nobilities. Mayer Rothschild handled the mercenary blood money of the House of Hesse by becoming its banker in 1783. The House of Rothschild grew from its connections to members of the Illuminati, and not because the two were combined. Despite their best efforts at necessary secrecy, the Illuminati were exposed in 1784 by the Bavarian government, which soon issued an edict banning all secret societies. The workings of the order were contained in writings seized by the Bavarian government, which took them so seriously as to publish them in an official document entitled The Original Writings of the Order of the Illuminati, which was distributed to the major governments of Europe. Some members of the Illuminati were arrested, while most fled Bavaria under the edict. This only spread Illuminati philosophy further throughout Europe. Adam Weishaupt went under.
Wasn't the discovering of the Illuminati by the Bavarian folks, wasn't it like didn't the guy that was carrying, I don't know if he just said, carrying thing got struck by lightning, and then they found the guy dead, and then found on him this letter, and it exposed the Illuminati, which you can see that could be divine intervention. But it might not be true, it might be
under the
myth.
Sponsorship of Duke Ernst II of Saxe-Coburg-Altenburg, where he would continue to write books on the Illuminati until his death. The third cord in the Illuminati rope of control was Jewish revolutionary heresy. Shabbatai Tzvi calculated that the Messiah would come back in 1666. When that didn't pan out, Shabbatai taught that he was a Messiah. Shabbatai would later convert to Islam. Jakob Frank thought that the Messiah would return based on tolerating a finite amount of sin. His main idea is that sin should be promoted and practiced wherever possible so that the Messiah would come back sooner. Eventually, Frank also taught that he was a Messiah and that he was a successor to Shabbatai Tzvi. The revolutionary Frankists were a large group, and some...
This is what Candace Owens has been going about, that Israel was founded by these guys, Frankists. But I've also seen that it's not. But it's like them things, isn't it? It's like which side? But yeah, this is interesting as well. The Frankists. I don't know a great deal about the Frankists other than they was doing blood lettings on Christians on Passover. But Candice is saying that the guy was connected to him just because he lived in the same town as the guy who founded the Frankists. It's like there's no evidence that they was even together, and the Frankists was a very small group of Jewish nutjobs, basically.
Frankists were involved in the French Revolution. Rothschild welcomed Frankism. When Jacob Frank visited Frankfurt, he became wealthy with money from prominent Jewish families, including the Rothschilds. When the French Revolution was over, the Frankists scattered in Poland and Bohemia, intermarried into the gentry and middle class, and took on the appearance of Christianity. You need to know about the Frankists for two reasons. First, many prominent American politicians appear as moderates, but have a family tree rooted in Eastern European Jewish revolutionary heresy.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And, you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
You'll be surprised to learn that several key Middle Eastern politicians also share these roots. Second, so many people of Jewish background in Hollywood carry on the Frankist tradition today through constant promotion of sin and the occult. Though they were independent forces, the hand of the Illuminati was influenced by Jewish revolutionary heresy. This hand fit perfectly inside the glove made of Freemasonic fabric, which held the Rothschild money that empowered it.
This is also, I think, what Charlie Kirk was talking about. Because there's a clip going around of Charlie Kirk talking, and people are kind of saying he's talking about Israel. He's not talking about Israel, because he says secular Jews. That's the thing with Jews. Jews are a race. There's Christian Jews, there's atheist Jews, there's Jews, like, they're as broad a people as anybody. But yeah, Charlie Kirk was specifically saying that there's a group of Jews that fund left-wing organizations and non-profits that are basically destroying the West. This is definitely who he was talking about. Definitely.
Scattered from Bavaria, the Illuminati quickly re-emerged in France within pre-existing revolutionary groups, the largest of which was the Jacobin Club. The Jacobins, with the money from the Duke of Orleans, bought up and transported out much of the grain supply in France to create an artificial food shortage in 1789. The famine that resulted drove people to revolt. The Jacobins told the people to blame the famine on King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. The fate of that French monarchy was sealed in the minds of the public when it was alleged that Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake," in response to the famine. Jacobin propaganda pinned this saying on Antoinette to create maximum hatred for the monarchy. It worked. The hatred of all authority in the French Revolution did not stop with the execution of the French king and queen in 1793. By the time the 6 successive waves of the French Revolution had passed, over 18,000 people had been guillotined without trial.
Yeah, I'm literally listening to the 100-Year War, which the French Revolution well, he didn't say that was started, because technically that was started by us. Because basically, yeah, the French got smashed by the English of the time, like the English longbowmen, and they just annihilated the French nobility. The French, again, it kind of played out again what the Germans did to them. The French have a bad history of not keeping up to date with battle tactics and technology, because yeah, the same thing kind of happened later on in World War One with the Maginot Lines, or whatever they're called. But yeah, yeah, it's kind of our fault, the French Revolution, because they got devastated, and it was basically over that the King of England at the time thought he had rights. Basically, the French king had died, he was the closest, the King of England was the closest relative, and the French denied him because he was related to him through his mum. It was his mum's relative, and the French said you can't pass it through the mum. The king can't be, the lineage can't be passed through the mother, which started a war. Yeah, but at least in the first wave, which led to the French done a lot better later on, but the first wave of the 100-Year War devastated France and basically led to these conditions. So yeah, apologies for that, France, from me ancestors.
Decapitated heads of the nobility were stuck on bayonets and paraded throughout the streets. The Christian calendar was abolished. The work week was lengthened to 10 days straight. By the time the French Revolution burnt itself out, it is estimated that this program killed 300,000 people, all in the name of liberty, equality, and fraternity. The world's first Luciferian revolution, guided by the Illuminati, was complete.
Yeah, Napoleon.
Mama, I have to cheat the tax collector before my own children. Do you think I want to do that? I live honestly, I trade honestly. I want to be honest with them, but they won't let us. We are Jews, taxed to death, forbidden to learn a trade, forbidden to own land. They keep us in chains. They send men here to rob us. So work and strive for money. Money is power. Money is the only weapon that the Jew has to defend himself with. Oh, Mama!
Though Mayer Amschel Rothschild died in Frankfurt in 1812, his empire grew through his family. Perhaps the one quote in modern English which sums up Mayer Rothschild's ambitions is this: "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." Towards the end of his life, Mayer told his 5 sons that they should expand the Rothschild banking empire throughout Europe. Nathan was sent to London. Amschel stayed in Frankfurt. Solomon went to Vienna. Karl traveled to Naples. James stayed in Paris. The establishment of the 5 centers of the Rothschild banking family is symbolized by the 5 arrows in the Rothschild family crest. The alliance between the Rothschilds and Illuminized Freemasonry continued with this new generation. Freemasonry was a common element with Adam Weishaupt, 3 of the 5 Rothschild brothers, and Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was initiated into Freemasonry in June 1798. Napoleon was part of the Inner Masonic Club, but his imperialist ambitions could not be contained. Keep in mind that Napoleon appointed himself as King of France in December 1804. Napoleon enjoyed immense success as Emperor of France, yet his policies contained a fatal flaw. Napoleon's Banque de France, which would provide interest-free loans to the people of France, was a direct threat to the Rothschild banking empire. The Rothschilds decided to defeat Napoleon's army, not through military conquest, but by financial dominance. Napoleon needed so much money to finance his war that he agreed to sell all French territory in America through the Louisiana Purchase of 1804. Nathan Rothschild in England took Prince William's money transferred to Amschel Rothschild in Germany and used it to fund British forces. Jacob Rothschild in France was one of several banks helping to fund Napoleon's army. This means that the Rothschilds were busy funding both sides of the War of 1812. The modern financial system, started by the Rothschilds, has been funding both sides of every major war for 200 years. While the Battle of Waterloo was a defeat for Napoleon, it was also a guarantee of financial domination for the Rothschilds. Because the Rothschilds had a network of banking couriers throughout Europe, They were the only merchants allowed to pass through the English and French blockades. One of these couriers crossed the English Channel with the news that Wellington had won the war a full 24 hours before Wellington's own courier. Nathan Rothschild knew that he was armed with this critical information before anyone else was. He ordered his workers to start selling holdings of British war bonds. Other traders observed this false maneuver and started selling their bonds in a panic. The bonds became worthless as everyone thought that Rothschild's action meant that Napoleon had won the war. Nathan Rothschild then instructed his traders to buy all the British bonds they could get. When London heard the news that England won the war against Napoleon, British bonds gained a level of value even higher than before the war began. The ownership of such a vast sum of high-value bonds meant that the Rothschilds literally owned the Bank of England. On top of all this, there were the profits to be made from loans to Europe to repair the damage done by Napoleon. From the Battle of Waterloo onwards, the interests of the British Crown and the Rothschilds were so intertwined that the Rothschilds were given titles of nobility. Eventually, through intermarriage, the Rothschilds became royalty.
Yeah, we'll pause there. Yeah, this bloke has done his research as well, because he's pouring things out that, I mean, some things like, yeah, some things I know, and I kind of have a loose understanding of these things, but the whole laying out of the see, like, I knew about the Rothschilds sending them to control, like, their family members to control different parts of the world's banking. But yeah, seeing how they actually done it, and I knew about the lying that Napoleon won, not the British, not the English. Yeah, yeah, fascinating stuff. But yeah, that's his part. Sweet.